book off my bookshelf is County Folklore, Leicestershire and Rutland, collected and edited by Charles James Bilson, issued by the Folklore Society. Now this is a book of extracts and it's printed, and it's number 3, and it's printed in 1895, but it refers to a lot of texts that are a lot earlier, which I will endeavour to find those books somewhere. But for now, get yourself a cuppa, sit back and enjoy today's episode. Welcome to today's episode. This is Superstitious Beliefs and Practices. Superstitions connected with inorganic natural objects. Charlie, a spot very near, is called the Giant's Graves, taken from History and Antiquities of Charnwood Forest. Barden. This recollection that it was one of the high places where the bards, hence its name, hymned the praises of their sun god and their heroes, and where druidical superstition received its votaries and offered its victims, is one of the many associations connected with Barden. History and Antiquities of Charnwood Forest, 1842. Superstition concerning the dip of the rocks. One venerable old man at work at the Gatehouse Quarry, observing me searching for the dip, asked me with a smile expressive of his consciousness of superior wisdom in such matters, "Which way is Judea?" I at once pointed my hand to the southeasterly direction. "You are right," replied my mentor. "Find Judea and you will find the direction of these rocks. Find the dip and you will point you to Judea." This is the case over the whole world, and has been so ever since the Saviour's resurrection. I found Professor Sedgwick's antiquity line theory at once destroyed. Of course I did not attempt to shake a belief that seemed not unmixed with natural piety. Beacon fire. Mr. Langham of Needless Inn informs me that he well remembers that 34 years ago there stood, on the highest point of Beacon, an erection of rude and ancient masonry, about 6 feet high, of a round form, and having in its centre a cavity about a yard deep and a yard in diameter, the sides of which were very thickly covered with burnt pitch. This, he says, had all the appearance of having been used for holding the beacon's fires. He remembers, too, that at that period the entrenchments above described were much more visible than they are now. He is the only person with whom I have conversed that seems ever to have mentioned or noticed them, except Mr. William Lester of Woodhouse, and they are not mentioned in any writing or whatever, unless Gale's remark applied to them. I discovered my diggings many heaps of nearly perished mortar mingled with fragments of stone and dark red brick. Beacon Hill. Not satisfied with my single opinion of these extraordinary remains, I requested Mr. Lester, a highly intelligent farmer and surveyor who lives at the foot of Beacon, to examine them. He was perfectly astonished, though long residence almost upon the spot, and aware of the remains described as lying on the south-west side of the hill. It had never occurred to him that there were others. "Often," says he, "as I have crossed that wonderful hill, a noise had with the feeling that it was a charmed spot. I have either been so occupied with the distant prospects or so circumscribed with my immediate view by the inequalities of the surface, that I have never before once noticed the most remarkable fortifications to which you have directed me." Barrows. Among the hills of Charnwood Forest in Leicestershire are two, the one called Barrow and the other Hiveshead. The former, as many may be informed from the name, was the site of the altar on which sacrifices were offered to the god or gods abiding on the higher Hiveshead. At Humberstone in the same county, a village owing its name to an umber or sacred stone within its boundaries, the umber, at which religious rites were performed, was an eminence in the vicinity of a higher ridge, which according to the common belief was the abode of gods. A ridge of considerable length occurs beside the Roman Foss Road near Ratcliffe-on-Reek in the county of Leicester. It is evidently a structured form, at least in part by man, and being like the Barrow about a mile distant near Thurmaston, lightly destroyed, situate near a highway anciently of great publicity, it must be regarded as one instance of the Long Barrow, the true though thought remote origin of the present form of our churches. King Lud's entrenchments or rents. Dr. Stuckley says, at Cossington, just before I came to the River Reek, is a vast barrow, 350 feet long, 120 broad and 40 high, or near it. It is very handsomely worked upon the sides and very steep. They call it Shipley Hill, and say a great captain called Shipley was buried there. I doubt not, but this is of great antiquity and Celtic, and that the intent of it is rightly preserved by the county people. But as to the name of him, I can say nothing. On the top are several oblong double trenches cut into the turf, where the lads and lasses of the adjacent villages meet upon Easter Monday yearly to be merry with cakes and ale. An old shepherd still living, 1799, remembers these sports, but they have long fallen into disuse. The hill is lately proved to be the wonderful work of nature, not of art, and has been produced by some uncommon surflicks of the River Reek. Robin Hood's Barn. There is a mound in a flat meadow near the river at Hoby, part of Earl Ferrer's farm, which the inhabitants, for some unknown reason, if there ever was any, called Robin Hood's Barn. It appears to be one of those mounds which the Romans threw up to mark their marches to the near of the legions. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share and subscribe, and I shall see you next time. Goodbye.